The opening scene of the disappearance at Crescent Lake Camp sets the eerie tone for the entire story, blending mystery, folklore, and impending danger. It begins with a flashback, shrouded in the grainy, flickering aesthetic of an old home video or a distorted memory. The camera drifts through dense, mist-laden woods, the silence broken only by the crunch of leaves underfoot and the distant call of an owl. A young camper, no older than 12, moves hesitantly through the trees, his flashlight beam cutting shaky paths through the darkness. He's whispering to himself, half laughing as if trying to shake off his own fear, clearly part of a dare or late-night game. The audience catches glimpses of the camp's faded sign, Crescent Lake, barely visible in the gloom. Then, a noise. A twig snaps, too deliberate to be an animal. The boy freezes. His breath quickens as the camera lingers on his face, his wide eyes reflecting the dim light. Something moves in the trees behind him, a shadow, tall and unnaturally still. The boy turns, his flashlight sweeping across the underbrush, but there's nothing there. Then, a whisper, almost like the wind, but too clear, too close. "You shouldn't have come back." The boy stumbles backward, his voice trembling as he calls out, "Hello? Who's there?" No answer. The camera pulls back, framing him in the vast, suffocating darkness of the forest. Then, movement. A hand, pale and streaked with dirt, darts out from the shadows and yanks him off screen. The flashlight falls, rolling to a stop, its beam illuminating an old camp badge lying in the dirt, the same one that will be found years later. The screen cuts to black. A final distant scream echoes, then silence. The scene fades into the present day, where cheerful campers arrive, oblivious to the history soaked into the soil beneath them. The contrast between the bright, sunlit camp and the lingering dread of what happened that night is stark, planting the first seeds of unease in the audience. This opening is classic folk horror meets psychological thriller. It establishes the legend, introduces the supernatural, or is it just human evil, threat, and leaves enough unanswered to hook the viewer. The shadowy figure, the abandoned badge, and the whispered warning all become crucial clues later, tying the past horror to the present-day disappearances. Most importantly, it leaves a question hanging. Was the boy taken by a man or something far older? The scene opens in bright daylight, a stark contrast to the shadowy terror of the prologue. The camera sweeps across the sun-dappled grounds of Crescent Lake Camp, where the air hums with cicadas and the distant laughter of kids. A weathered wooden sign, its paint peeling, creaks in the breeze. "Welcome to Crescent Lake, established." 1962. It's picturesque, almost too perfect, like a postcard hiding a stain on the other side. A yellow bus rumbles down the dirt road, kicking up dust as it rolls to a stop. The doors swing open and campers spill out, energetic, loud, oblivious. Among them, we meet our key players. Lena, the new counselor, steps off last, her eyes scanning the woods with an unreadable expression. She's here for a fresh start, but something about the place makes her uneasy, though she can't say why. Jake, the troublemaker, shoves past the others, already cracking jokes about how the camp looks like a murder motel. His bravado is all defense. He's the first to notice things out of place. Mia, small and wide-eyed, clutches her backpack like a lifeline. She's never been to camp before, and every rustle in the trees makes her flinch. Tyler, the local history nerd, rattles off facts about the camp's founding, unaware of the darker stories he's about to uncover. The head counselor, Mark, greets them with practiced cheer, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. He's been here for years, and his jokes about not wandering off alone carry a weight he doesn't explain. As the campers settle in, Mia hesitates near the tree line, her breath catching when she thinks she sees something between the branches. But when she looks again, there's nothing. That night, around a roaring campfire, the older kids whisper about the boy who vanished years ago. Some say his ghost still walks the woods. Others insist it wasn't a ghost. It was a man. Mark shuts it down with a laugh, calling it all nonsense. But as the firelight flickers across their faces, shadows stretching long behind them, the audience sees it. The way the woods seem to lean in, listening. This scene lulls us into a false sense of security. Camp is fun, camp is safe, but the undercurrent of dread is there, pulsing beneath every smile. The stage is set. The disappearances are about to begin. The first full day at Crescent Lake Camp dawns bright and clear, but beneath the surface, something restless stirs. The campers go about their activities, archery, swimming, knot tying, but an undercurrent of unease lingers, like a discordant note in an otherwise cheerful song. Lena notices it first. While leading a nature hike near the lake, she catches a glimpse of movement in the trees, too quick to be an animal, too deliberate to be the wind. She brushes it off, blaming exhaustion or an overactive imagination. But later, as she reviews the roster in the counselor's cabin, she realizes the numbers don't quite add up. There's an extra name on the list, one she doesn't recognize, scribbled in faded ink. Daniel, Cabin 3. When she asks Mark about it, he dismisses it with a shrug. Probably just an old record. Don't worry about it. But the way his jaw titles tells her he's lying. Meanwhile, Mia's unease grows. That night, as she tries to sleep, the wind carries whispers through the thin cabin walls, not the usual rustling of leaves, but something softer, more deliberate. "You're next," it seems to say. She bolts upright, her heart hammering, only to find the cabin silent, the other girls asleep. The next morning, she confides in Jake, who laughs it off, until he finds something that changes his mind. While skipping out on chores, Jake explores the overgrown trail near the lake's edge. There, half buried in the mud, he finds a rusted pocket knife with initials carved into the handle, DR, and a faded camp badge from decades ago, its edges crusted with something dark. That evening, as the camp gathers for dinner, a storm rolls in. The power flickers, plunging the mess hall into darkness for one breathless moment. When the lights return, Mia's seat is empty. Her half-eaten meal is still warm, her jacket draped over the chair. But Mia is gone. The counselors scramble, calling her name, their flashlights cutting through the downpour. It's Lena who finds the first clue, a single footprint in the mud near the lake, too large to be Mia's, leading toward the water. And then, just beyond the tree line, a shadow detaches itself from the darkness, watching, waiting. This scene marks the story's turn from simmering tension to outright dread. The camp's idyllic facade cracks, revealing the rot beneath. The disappearances have begun, and whatever lurks in the woods is just getting started. The storm that had been threatening all day finally breaks just as the campfire stories end. Thunder growls like an angry beast as counselors hurry campers back to their cabins, their laughter edged with nervous energy. Mia lingers for a moment, staring into the dying embers, her face painted orange and black by the flickering light. She opens her mouth as if to say something to Lena, then thinks better of it and vanishes into the rain-slick darkness. That's the last time anyone sees her. The realization comes slowly, like frost creeping across a window. At morning roll call, Mia doesn't answer. At first there are giggles. Maybe she's hiding, maybe she overslept. But when Lena checks cabin 3, Mia's bunk is perfectly made, her suitcase still unpacked beneath the bed, too neat, too empty. The other girls exchange glances. They swear Mia came back with them last night. They heard her climb into bed, but no one actually saw her. The search begins with organized efficiency that quickly unravels into panic. Counselors fan out across the campgrounds, voices rising in desperate calls that the hungry woods swallow whole. Mark's hands shake as he radios the park rangers, his usual confidence crumbling. It's Jake who finds the first real clue, Mia's journal, abandoned near the boathouse, its pages warped from dew. He talks to me in my dreams, says the lake is hungry, says it's been waiting for me. The others don't hear him, but I do. His voice is in the wind, in the creak of my bunk at night. I saw his face today between the trees, not a face really, just shadows where shadows shouldn't be. Lena thinks I'm imagining things, but I know the truth. He's still here, and he's chosen me. The words hang in the air, heavier than the morning mist on the lake. A chill runs through the group, though the sun is now high and hot. Somewhere in the distance a loon cries, a sound so mournful it feels like a eulogy. As the campers are herded back to the mess hall for their own safety, Lena stays behind, staring at the still waters of Crescent Lake. The surface is flawless as glass, reflecting the sky with deceptive innocence. Then, just for a second, something pale flickers beneath, a shape that might be a face or a trick of the light. When Lena blinks, it's gone. The disappearance has ripped away the camp's thin veneer of safety. Rules are established. No one goes anywhere alone. All activities are supervised. Cabins will be locked at night. But the damage is done. The campers eye each other with new suspicion, and every shadow seems to breathe. Because whatever took Mia didn't leave a trace. No struggle, no footprints leading away. It's as if the night itself opened its jaws and swallowed her whole, and the terrible, unspoken question hangs over them all. Who's next? The morning after Mia's disappearance dawns eerily quiet, as if the forest itself is holding its breath. A thick mist clings to the ground, swallowing sound and sight beyond a few yards. The camp, once vibrant with laughter and chatter, now moves in hushed tones and furtive glances. The authorities have been called, but their arrival is hours away, leaving the counselors to organize their own search party, armed with nothing but flashlights and a growing sense of dread. Lena takes charge, her voice steady, but her hands betraying her with a slight tremble as she divides the campers and staff into groups. The rules are strict. No one separates, no one strays beyond shouting distance. But even as she speaks, she notices the way the campers cluster together, their usual camaraderie replaced by something darker, suspicion. Eyes dart toward the woods, then back to each other, silently wondering, could one of us have done this? The search is methodical at first. Cabins overturned, storage sheds checked twice, the shoreline scoured for footprints. But as the hours stretch on with no sign of Mia, desperation sets in. Jake, usually the first to crack a joke, moves like a ghost, his fingers compulsively tracing the pocket knife he found, the one with DR carved into it. Tyler, meanwhile, has become a sudden expert on every local disappearance dating back 50 years, whispering theories to anyone who will listen. His voice drops to a murmur when Mark walks by, because Mark isn't acting right. He's too calm, too quick to dismiss Mia's journal as kid stuff, too insistent that she probably just ran away, even though her belongings are still neatly stacked in her cabin. When Lena presses him, his answers are smooth, rehearsed. Teenagers do this sometimes, he says. They wander off. She'll turn up. But his eyes keep flicking toward the old ranger station at the edge of the property, a place supposedly off limits, its windows boarded up, its door sagging on rusted hinges. Then, as the group pauses near the lake's edge, a sound cuts through the tension, a low, wet splash, like something heavy slipping beneath the water. Everyone freezes. The surface of Crescent Lake is still again, unbroken. But floating near the shore, barely visible in the mist, is a camper's hair tie, the same kind Mia always wore. The discovery fractures the group. Some want to wade in and search the water. Others back away, their faces pale. Mark orders everyone back to the mess hall, his voice leaving no room for argument. But as they retreat, Lena glances over her shoulder and sees it. A figure, standing motionless between the trees, half hidden in shadow. Tall, too tall, its shape just wrong in a way she can't explain. Before she can call out, it's gone. By nightfall, the camp is a tinderbox of paranoia. Campers trade theories and whispers, a kidnapper, a ghost, a wild animal. The counselors watch each other as closely as they watch the kids, and when the generator suddenly cuts out, plunging the camp into darkness, the screaming starts. Because Jake is missing now too. This scene isn't just about the search for Mia, it's about the death of trust. The camp's carefully constructed order crumbles, revealing the rot beneath. Friendships fracture, authority figures become suspects, and with every passing minute, the woods feel less like scenery and more like a living thing, watching, waiting, hungry. The generator's sudden failure doesn't just kill the lights, it extinguishes the last remnants of courage clinging to the campers. One moment, Jake is there, his flashlight beam cutting through the blackness as he cracks a nervous joke about cheap camp wiring. The next, the darkness swallows him whole. It happens in the space between heartbeats. A gust of wind howls through the mess hall, rattling the windows. Flashlights swing wildly, beams crossing like sabers in the dark. Someone screams, not in fear but in pain, as if they've been grabbed. When the light finds the space where Jake stood, there's only his flashlight, rolling across the floor, its beam flickering like a dying pulse. Chaos erupts. Campers scramble over each other, their voices rising in a cacophony of panic. Mark shouts for order, but no one listens. Tyler, usually so composed, clutches at Lena's sleeve, his words tumbling out in a frantic whisper. It's happening like before, just like in the stories. They disappear near the water and then... His voice cuts off as his eyes lock on the window behind her. Outside, in the moonlit dark, something moves. Not an animal, not a person. Something that walks with a terrible, unnatural patience, its silhouette stretching too tall against the trees. It pauses, as if sensing their gaze, and then vanishes. The search for Jake is frenzied, reckless. No one follows protocol now. They tear through cabins, overturn canoes, shout his name until their voices crack. It's Tyler who finds the first clue, a trail of muddy footprints leading from the mess hall to the old ranger station, the one Mark kept insisting was nothing but a storage shed. The prints start normal, then grow distorted, as if whatever made them was changing. Inside the station, the air reeks of mildew and something metallic. The beam of Lena's flashlight catches on a work table littered with newspaper clippings, decades of missing persons reports, all linked to Crescent Lake. A map of the campgrounds is pinned to the wall, marked with red X's where campers vanished, and in the corner, half hidden under a tarp, lies Jake's hoodie, damp with lake water. But the worst discovery comes when Lena lifts the tarp. Scratched into the floorboards, barely visible beneath layers of grime, is a single phrase written over and over in what might be blood. He walks in the water. As the group stumbles back into the night, the clouds part just long enough for moonlight to paint Crescent Lake's surface silver. Out in the center, something breaks the water, a pale, slender shape that might be an arm, reaching up before slipping beneath the waves. This disappearance is different from Mia's. There's violence here, a sense of something ancient and hungry stirring beneath the lake's placid surface. The camp's carefully maintained illusions are shattered. No more pretending this is just bad luck or a runaway teen. The storm returns as Lena and Tyler push through the undergrowth, their flashlights carving shaky paths through the rain. The map they found in the ranger station, marked with cryptic symbols and the faded words, "Where he keeps them," has led them here. A stretch of woods so dense the trees seem to press in, whispering secrets to those who dare listen. Then Tyler stumbles, not over roots, but on something metal, a rusted hatch, nearly swallowed by decades of moss and mud. The moment his fingers brush its surface, the wind howls through the trees like a warning. It takes both of them to wrench it open. The hinges scream, and the smell that rises is thick with decay, wet earth, old rot, and beneath it, something sweetly chemical. The beam of Lena's flashlight trembles as it reveals a ladder descending into blackness. The bunker is colder than the night above. The walls glisten with moisture, the air so still it feels like the lungs of some long-buried beast. They move slowly, their breaths shallow, stepping over scattered debris, a child's sneaker crusted with dirt, a cracked flashlight from the 1980s, Polaroids pinned to the walls, their colors leached to ghostly blues, each one showing a camper, wide-eyed and terrified, posed like dolls before the lens. And then, the worst of it. At the bunker's center stands a makeshift altar. Candles, long since melted to stubs, surround a collection of small objects. A hair ribbon, a scout's badge, a set of initials carved into the wood. Above it all hangs a single photograph, its edges curled with age. A young Mr. Harlow, standing at the lake's edge, his face twisted in something between fear and reverence. But it's the notebooks that unravel the truth. Page after page of Harlow's frantic scrawl details his work over the years. The lake demands balance. It takes, so the rest may live. The others didn't understand. They called me mad, but I've seen him in the water. His hands are pale as drowned flesh. His voice is the sound of the tide pulling a man under. I feed him, so he does not grow hungry enough to take us all. Tyler's hands shake as he turns the final page. There, in fresh ink, are two names, Mia, Jake. A sound cuts through the silence then, a wet, dragging shuffle from the tunnel behind them. The flashlight flickers. Something is coming up from the deeper dark. The damp air in the bunker grows heavier as the shuffling sound draws closer. Lena's flashlight flickers, once, twice, threatening to plunge them into total darkness as the thing in the tunnel emerges. Not a ghost, not a monster, Mr. Harlow, but not the groundskeeper they remember. This version of him is hunched, his clothes hanging loose on a frame grown gaunt from years of hiding. His fingernails are cracked and black with dirt, his eyes wide and glassy, reflecting the dim light like an animal caught in a trap. He doesn't speak at first, just stares at them, his breath ragged, as if he's surprised they've come this far. Then he smiles. It's the smile that chills Lena to the bone, not cruel, not triumphant, but devout. The smile of a man who believes utterly in his purpose. "You weren't supposed to find this place," he murmurs, his voice rough with disuse. "But maybe it's better this way. Maybe you'll understand." He steps forward, and the story spills out of him in fragments. Years ago, when Harlow was just a teenage camper, he saw him. the thing that lives in the lake. A presence older than the camp, older than the trees, hungrier than anything human. It took his best friend first, then others, and Harlow realized it would keep taking unless given offerings. "You think I'm a monster?" he rasps, gripping the altar like a priest at a pulpit. "I'm the only thing standing between them and him. I choose so the lake doesn't take everyone." Tyler stumbles back, but Lena stands frozen, her flashlight illuminating the photos behind Harlow. Generations of missing campers, each carefully documented. His sacrifices. Then, from the tunnel, a new sound. A whimper. Mia's voice. Harlow's face twists. "You don't take them yet," he snarls. Not at Lena, but at the darkness behind him. "It's not the full moon. You don't take them until—" The bunker's lights surge back on, blinding them all. When Lena's vision clears, Harlow is gone. But the hatch above them slams shut, and from the depths of the tunnel, water begins to rise. The water rises fast, swirling around their ankles in icy tendrils as Lena and Tyler scramble toward the tunnel, the only way out. Mia's cries guide them, echoing through the dark. The deeper they go, the colder the air becomes until their breath fogs in front of them, despite the summer heat above. The tunnel opens into a cavern, its ceiling dripping with stalactites like jagged teeth. And there, in the center, stands Harlow, gripping Mia's arm as she struggles. Jake lies unconscious nearby, his skin sickly pale, his lips tinged blue. "You don't understand!" Harlow shouts, his voice bouncing off the stone. "If he isn't fed, he'll take more! He'll take everyone!" Behind him, the underground pool stirs. Bubbles break the surface, then a slow, swirling current, as if something vast is rising from the depths. Lena lunges, tackling Harlow. They crash into the shallows, the water shockingly cold, numbing limbs within seconds. Mia scrambles to Jake, dragging him back as Tyler grabs a rock ready to strike. Then the water explodes. A figure surges up, towering, its form shifting between man and something else. Elongated limbs, skin like waterlogged parchment, eyes black and depthless. The thing that was once a man, now bound to the lake. Harlow wails, reaching for it like a supplicant. "I gave them to you. I kept my word." The entity's head tilts. Then, with a sound like a drowning gasp, it moves. Harlow is yanked under so fast he doesn't even scream. The cavern shakes. Water surges. Lena grabs Mia and Tyler hauls Jake toward the tunnel as the pool overflows, the thing's whispers following them. "Run." But the lake never forgets. They barely make it out before the hatch seals behind them with a groan of bending metal. Above ground, dawn is breaking, but Crescent Lake's surface remains perfectly, unnaturally still. The first sirens wail in the distance as Lena collapses on the shore, her body racked with tremors that have nothing to do with the cold. Mia clutches Jake's lifeless hand, her tears cutting clean streaks through the dirt on her face. Tyler stares at the lake, his lips moving soundlessly, still trapped in the nightmare they've escaped. Police lights paint the trees in flashes of red and blue. When the rangers arrive, their boots crunching over the gravel, they find 4 survivors where there should have been 20. The story that spills out is broken, fragments of bunkers and shadows, and a man who wasn't a man at all. The officers exchange glances. One radios for an ambulance, another mutters about hysteria under his breath. The divers come at noon. They search the lake with methodical precision, their equipment cutting through the murk. But the bunker isn't there. The cavern doesn't exist. The only evidence they pull from the depths is a single item, Harlow's faded camp staff hat, floating as if placed there deliberately. The lead investigator holds it up, dripping, and something slithers out from the lining, a waterlogged Polaroid of a smiling camper from 1987. Mia stops speaking entirely. Her parents take her home the next day, but she leaves something behind. Her journal, placed carefully on Lena's cot. The last page reads, "I can still hear him in my dreams. He says we only got away because he let us." Tyler becomes obsessed. He spends the following years tracking every disappearance at Crescent Lake, writing letters to Lena about patterns, about cycles. His final note before his own vanishing in 2023, "The sacrifices come every 36 years. It's almost time again." Jake survives, but barely. He wakes in the hospital with no memory of the tunnel or the cavern, only a recurring nightmare of the man under the water who whispers that he's marked now, that the lake will come for him when it's ready. Lena tries to move on, changes her name, moves cities, but every time it rains, she finds herself checking the locks twice, and once, when the power goes out during a storm, she swears her bathroom mirror stays fogged up for hours after her shower, with words traced in the condensation, "You're still mine." Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.